My friends, Russia has just lost its entire army. What you are about to see now is the Pentagon report that Moscow tried to suppress. 3,197 tanks in active service were simply wiped out. The world's armored land power has collapsed. The tank, the undisputed king of the battlefield since the iron and blood mud of the Somme in 1916, has just been summarily retired by plastic parts and lithium batteries that cost less than $500. Confidential document issued by the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command G2 titled The Operational Environment 2024-2034 Large-Scale Combat Operations brought to light a reality that the generals in Moscow were trying to hide under layers of state propaganda. Pentagon analysts came up with a frightening number. My friends, this is serious because the number doesn't just represent a severe loss of equipment in combat. American intelligence confirmed that the Russian Federation has lost more tanks than its entire operational stock that was in active service on the day the war began. The official report from the Army's G2 details 3,197 tanks lost as of May 2014. But the most recent consolidated intelligence data already points to an even more alarming number. 3,912 Russian tanks completely wiped out and destroyed. And look at the speed of the industrial collapse, my friends. That's almost 4,000 heavy armored vehicles that went up in smoke, proving that the rate of destruction has surpassed any replacement capacity of Russian factories. All this frontline armored fleet that the Kremlin took decades and spent trillions of rubles to build, maintain, and modernize was summarily wiped off the face of the earth in just over 2 years. No one is talking about this with the seriousness it deserves. But for you to understand the strategic significance of losing more than 3,000 tanks, imagine the complete and instant disappearance of the combined armored forces of 2 or 3 European NATO powers in the blink of an eye. To get the exact dimension of this industrial massacre, if we divide these 3,197 tanks destroyed over the months of conflict, we reach the mathematical conclusion that Russia lost about 110 armored vehicles per month. That's more than 27 steel monsters evaporated every week, which means that every 6 hours, day or night, without interruption for more than 2 years, a Russian tank exploded or was abandoned on the Ukrainian front. My friends, add this to the documented destruction of 6,160 armored combat vehicles, and the situation stops being an operational crisis and becomes the biggest land military disaster in the modern history of that country. Showing that the result is the end of the line for the clandestine classic doctrine of breakthrough by massed steel. Now subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like. It takes a lot of work to make this, my friends. And the ultimate symbol of this technological humiliation goes by the name T-90M ProRiv, the crown jewel of Russian military engineering. The armored monster that was sold to the world as an invincible mobile fortress. The T-90M rolled off the assembly lines of the Uralvagonzavod factory, equipped with the most advanced technology in the Russian arsenal, including Hell-Kit reactive armor plates, secret composite material alloys, high-fidelity thermal sights for the gunner, and electronic systems capable of jamming the frequencies of Western anti-tank missiles. But all this $5 million engineering was completely nullified by basic physics and a catastrophic design flaw that the Soviet designers left as a legacy at the heart of the vehicle. The T-90M suffers from the same structural flaw as its predecessors from the 1970s and 1980s. The automatic ammunition loading system uses a carousel, located directly below the turret, where dozens of highly explosive warheads are exposed without any protective barrier to contain an internal detonation. But make no mistake, the Kremlin is not losing these tanks just because of tactical incompetence of its field commanders. There is a second level to this hidden strategy that involves the revolutionary use of FPV drones. These are remotely piloted drones that completely bypass the tank's 800mm frontal armor. The drone operator, hidden in a trench kilometers away, doesn't try to pierce the thickest part of the steel. He simply maneuvers the small commercial drone to hit the thin roof of the turret and the engine ventilation grills at the rear of the armored vehicle. The moment the rudimentary explosive charge touches the vulnerable spot, a spark penetrates the internal compartment and activates the ammunition carousel, generating an instant thermobaric explosion that throws the several-ton turret dozens of meters into the air, turning Putin's pride in the world into a funeral pyre of twisted iron for the crew. The desperation of Russian commanders on the front lines is so evident that they have started welding structures known as cage armor on top of their most advanced tanks. These improvised iron frames desperately try to create a physical barrier against attacks from above, but the technical report reveals the obvious. There's no point in putting a steel cage over the turret if the tank doesn't receive proper maintenance, if the sensitive components are worn out, and if the crew doesn't have enough communication networks to anticipate the approach of a threat. Now pay attention to this. The economic asymmetry of this conflict has caused silent panic in command rooms around the world. Why can an 18-year-old operator using a video game controller and a $500 weapon pulverize the pinnacle of Russian industrial technology in seconds? This harsh reality has pushed the Russian military leadership into the realm of logistical desperation and unsustainable financial math. With modern assembly lines paralyzed by Western sanctions, which block access to chips and advanced optical components, the Russian army was forced to reopen its strategic Siberian depots from the Cold War to withdraw obsolete relics like the T-62 and even the T-55, which was designed right after the end of World War II. Look at the level of desperation. The soldiers of 2026 are being sent to the front line locked inside tin cans from 1950. Imagine being a 19-year-old locked inside a machine that was built before your grandfather was born, knowing that a toy drone could incinerate you at any second. Vehicles that don't have composite armor, don't have night vision, and whose targeting systems rely on manual calculations in an environment dominated by the speed of light and electronic warfare. The reality of the battlefield is the visceral panic of an undertrained crew inside an obsolete T-62, hearing the high-pitched buzz of a drone approaching without having any electronic countermeasures or automated machine guns capable of intercepting the threat. The accident. He realized through the data from the G2 report that it is infinitely cheaper and safer to destroy Russia's industrial capacity by sending massive batches of portable drones and Javelin missiles than to try to compete in conventional steel production. While Moscow spends months of work and millions of rubles to refurbish or manufacture a single heavy armored vehicle, Russia. Allied assembly lines deliver thousands of Switchblade systems guided by artificial intelligence at a tiny fraction of that cost. And if you think that the equipment crisis is the worst problem haunting the Russian generals, wait until you see what happens when the system faces an absolute shortage of qualified human crews. The loss of 3,000 tanks means the death or permanent disability of nearly 10,000 technicians, gunners, and commanders. Highly experienced ones who vanished along with the steel of their machines. My friends, talk about desperation. Replacing an old tank taken out of a rusty warehouse takes a few weeks. But training a human to operate in sync with complex combined arms systems in an environment of extreme stress requires years of military doctrine that Russia simply no longer has time to provide. This bloody lesson learned on Ukrainian soil is completely reshaping the future of land warfare and forcing superpowers like the United States to make radical decisions in their own force structures. Ukraine's mobile teams have achieved this level of lethality because they learned to use the terrain masterfully, setting up lightning ambushes hidden at strategic crossroads and in dense urban areas. Operating not only with Javelin missiles but also with cannons, Carl Gustav recoilless rifles and vast quantities of portable man-pad systems to clear the sky and prevent Russian air support. But here comes the strategic nuance that the Pentagon insists on highlighting, which completely changes the course of the analysis. The battle tank itself is not dead. No, 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 no. The Marine Corps' own force plan admits that if the armored vehicle is modernized with high-fidelity sensors, active protection, and capability, and to launch its own drones, it remains a tool with no viable substitute in military history. And when the mission is to advance toward direct contact, penetrate the enemy's fortified lines, and secure physical control of territory in times of total war, it is the best weapon. The destructive power of a ground force is no longer measured by how many tons of armor it can move across the terrain, but rather by how many optical sensors, reconnaissance drones, and networked firing systems it can coordinate simultaneously, not to mention electronic warfare. Yes, my friends, tanks will have to turn into steel computers. This transition creates a colossal power vacuum on NATO's eastern flank and profoundly changes the strategic balance in relation to China. Because the whole world has just witnessed the degradation of Russia from a formidable mechanized power to a second-rate land force. Unable to sustain a modern combined arms offensive without suffering intolerable casualties. What the system and the mainstream media don't want you to realize is that the era of industrial mass attrition warfare has definitively ended on the fields of Europe. We have crossed the threshold and with no turning back entered the era of algorithmic warfare, where data processing intelligence and decentralized agility determine who lives and who dies on the global stage. The era of steel is over and the era of intelligence has begun. But now I want to separate those who just watch videos for entertainment from those who truly understand the playing field. I want your technical opinion here in the comments. If you believe that battle tanks are definitively dead and that masses of steel are logistical suicide in the era of drones, right, end of steel. Now, if you're one of those who understand that technology has only changed the tool and that without heavy armor on the ground, no victory can be secured, right, land dominance. I'm going to read each of these comments to find out who here is an elite analyst and who is still stuck in superficial armchair analysis. Share your perspective because the time for doubt is over. The stage is set and the forces are already moving behind the scenes, but the truth is, what you see on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. For those who want to understand the real game before the system collapses for good, the way forward isn't just through open networks. That's why we built our Intel bunker. An exclusive platform, a fully protected environment where censorship simply can't stop us. Inside, more than 3,000 elite analysts dissect every geopolitical and economic move in real time, delivering the raw information that no one else has the courage to show. Now, access is right on your screen through the QR code. It's right here, look. Just click, also in the first pinned comment and in the video description. Go there and secure your spot before the doors close. And if you want to protect your home and your family from social engineering that's destroying our culture, check out our series and movies channel. A curated selection made for you to watch with your loved ones without any woke stuff, no whining, straight to the point. Not sure what to watch this weekend? We've got a complete selection for you. The link is in the video description, in the first pinned comment, and in the card popping up now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like on the video, and share it with your friends. Now, armor your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you next time. See you then.